I feel like we're at the end of cancel culture. So for some background before we get into this cancel chaos, there is an award-winning chef online known as Pippa Eats. I'm not aware of her before today. Her name is Pippa Middlehurst. She studied East and Southeast Asian cuisine for over 15 years. She attended the Lanzhou Noodle School in 2019. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, which is famous for teaching students how to hand pull noodles, which I've had these hand pulled noodles. They're amazing. She published her first cookbook on dumplings and noodles back in August of 2020. Rosalind Tallison is a culture writer and contributor for the AV Club, Bitch Media, Refinery 29, and Vice. And she tweeted the following on August 15th. Why did a white woman write a cookbook about dumplings and noodles? Classic cancel culture dunk. Her tweet caught a ton of blowback, with most people making fun of her ridiculous take, as you would expect. Pippa, who had been inactive on Twitter for a year, responded in a quite reasonable way. Hi, Rosalind, trying to approach this without defensiveness. And it seems as though your issue is with the larger system of injustice in food publishing, underrepresentation of BIPOC authors, overrepresentation of white authors rather than me personally. I think so. Anyway, attacking an individual, she continues, that you know nothing about, pasting a picture of my face and calling me an arrogant and uncreative white woman allows others who respect your opinion to justify harassing me. In my experience, tweets like this don't challenge a systematic issue or instigate any other change. It just serves to temporarily make me the poster child for that system of injustice that no doubt I am part of. That's an interesting statement on her part. She didn't personally do anything, I think, is what she's saying, but because she's white, she's, I guess, saying she's part of that system, and simply leads to dogpiling and mounds of threatening DMs telling me, for example, to go and drown, in quotes, you deserve to fail, in quotes, and she ended it there. After Pippa's response, Tallison claimed the mob had turned on her and that she was being harassed by Nazis, which she claims Pippa had enticed to defend her. And here's Rosalind's tweet. The Nazi and white supremacist harassment has been ongoing for about 24 hours by the time she posted this. She could have looked at the replies or quotes on my tweet she commented on, but her feelings were so hurt that she didn't care, yada, yada. And now, before making her account private, Tallison mentioned she was going to need therapy after 2 days of harassment from Nazis, and then she dropped her personal PayPal link for tip. Anyway, therapy costs $130 a session, and I'm going to need it after this 48 hours of harassment, and she is asking for money. The entire situation is obviously a crazy mess. Now, why are we talking about here on This Week in Startups? I think this culture is enabled specifically by technology. Social media is the topic of the show. And I think this cancel culture, there are people who obviously deserve to be canceled for being horrible human beings. But I do think that when it comes to discussions about things that are delicate, if you're going to dunk on somebody, you need to get to know them a little bit. And maybe these conversations would be better had one-on-one or face-to-face. And this is coming from me. I've thrown a dunk or two on Twitter. I try to reserve it for Professor Cold Takes. But the Chad, I don't know who the Chad is. I mean, this is some sort of joke account, I think, had a funny tweet that I think actually speaks about this specific style of cancel culture. He says, tweets like this make me think I should open a rehab center for those addicted to Twitter clout. It would have to be constructed out of materials that block Wi-Fi and cellular data, with day trips outside the city and rehabilitation plans to help patients experience offline life. Don't I know it? On July 12th or something, or 14th, I decided, and I pinned to my profile on Twitter, twitter.com/Jason, that I'm taking a Twitter break. Now, I read Twitter, I'll like things, but I stopped engaging on there. You will see me post this podcast and say, hey, the pod's up. You might see me, since I'm writing the book, talk about my progress in the book. That's about it. And I can tell you, my head is so clear on my vacation and my ideas are flowing better. So this is a PSA. If you're on Twitter or other social networks getting wound up, take a break. It is wonderful. I am in month 2 of my break, and I have recaptured hours and hours of words and cognitive cycles that I was wasting on Twitter. Sustained Twitter addiction is a real negative, and it sends people into this type of rabbit hole, which results in pain and suffering. You have two different people dunking on each other, and one of them has a mob of Nazis who are going to defend her, which she obviously doesn't want. The other one has a mob of woke people trying to attack the other person, which I'm sure she doesn't want the other person attacked. Neither of them want to see each other suffer. So for the love of God, can you just DM each other and maybe go out and have a meal together or talk about your mutual love of cooking dumplings and noodles? Maybe that would actually be productive, folks. And an account IGP, and I'm not giving any endorsement of these accounts, by the way, or their positions. I'm just informing you of people's reactions. So don't take any of these things I'm reading as I endorse it or I endorse the person. I don't know most of these people, but LMAO, laughing my ass off. The woman has been learning East Southeast Asian cooking for over 15 years and attended an actual effing noodle school in China. If you think it's impossible for anyone who isn't Chinese to be just as versed in preparing dumplings as anyone else in the culture, Mike Selena, never one to not jump into a bar fight, said pretty good noodle drama going on right now. This is interesting. I want to show you a really good example about how cultures can influence each other in a positive way, not through appropriation, but through inspiration. If you don't know, my favorite director after Ridley Scott is Akira Kurosawa. And it's just a slight edge for Ridley Scott because of Gladiator and Blade Runner. But Kurosawa, High and Low, Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, these are some of the greatest films ever made. Pure beauty, like watching a painting unfold before your eyes. Highly recommend watching High and Low, just incredible film noir by Kurosawa, and Yojimbo and Seven Samurai, and Stray Dog, another noir film from Kurosawa, because Kurosawa was inspired by the French noir detective stories. So the French inspiring Kurosawa. Kurosawa inspired George Lucas. A lot of the characters and a lot of the iconography in Star Wars comes from Kurosawa. In fact, Darth Vader, if you can envision in your mind the mask, looks a lot like samurai armor and headdresses. And in fact, that's where he got it from. And obviously, there are lightsabers and samurai swords. You get the idea. In fact, in The Hidden Forest, there were two characters that he modeled, R2-D2 and C-3PO after, who were like bumbling fools. I think they were guards, if I remember the story correct. I think it was called Hidden Fortress. So let's just pause for a second here. Kurosawa was a big inspiration to Lucas, but I am super excited that Disney Plus has charged 6 different Japanese animation studios to produce 9 short films in anime style of Star Wars stories. They're calling it Star Wars Visions. So let's take a moment and look at how cultural sharing and inspiration can produce amazing products in the world. Some people will like to focus on tearing each other down for being inspired. A white woman being inspired by Chinese noodles. Let's take a moment here and just think about how amazing it is that the French directors inspired Kurosawa, Kurosawa inspired Lucas, and now Lucas is inspiring Japanese animators and anime. This is great. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the trailer. I cannot wait to see this. Your startup needs business insurance, and you should look no further than Embroker. If you don't have insurance, you failed one of the first steps. Embroker technology saves you time and money. Prices are up to 20% lower with better coverage than the incumbents. You can go from sign up to quote and purchase in just 10 minutes. When you work with Embroker instead of business insurance incumbents, you're not dealing with large, slow corporations. Plus, the sign-up takes days, not weeks, and the process is transparent with no opaque pricing. Here are 4 crucial types of startup insurance that they cover. And you're going to need all 4 of these in all likelihood. Cyber insurance, in case you get hacked. D&O insurance, so if your directors and officers do something dumb and you get sued, you're covered. You have E&O insurance, which covers errors and omissions. That's what the E and the O stands for. And it helps you scale because many major customers will ask to see your E&O insurance in order to close a deal. And of course, EPL, Employment Practices Liability. This covers harassment, wrongful termination, and more. To instantly buy custom-built insurance for startups, go to embroker.com/twist. That's EMBROKER.com/twist. And while you're there, get an extra 10% off using the offer code TWIST. You guessed it. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode.